as he burns his lips.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 8, New Zealand Local Government Association. I've got Helen and Bede up the
Phil,
front.
can I just flag a motion that we've sent through to the team that would like to put on the table, seconded by Jake, please?
Okay.
So he's flagging a motion that he's putting up.
Can I flag moving option 2, and I'll send through my amendments to you now.
Who said that?
So you may have to foreshadow that what you're. We'll get the motion on the table first.
So let's get Helen and Bede to tell us their story first, and then we'll see.
And in the meantime, we'll get the first motion.
Okay.
Kia ora koutou. We weren't intending to go into any detail. The report speaks for itself. There are 2 matters that I would just like to address, which came through the combined Community Board information session yesterday. And that was firstly, Local Government New Zealand, you'll have seen in the table of advantages that refers to support services that are available to all elected members and access to wellbeing tools. And I was asked what could be put in place. I've spoken today to the Council's Health and Safety Manager, and what could be made available to all elected members is the same workplace support that's available to staff. And that scheme operates to support effectively anything that gets in the way of doing your job effectively, and there is counselling and psychologists available, and that could be switched on with virtually immediately, and the costs of that depend on how much it's used. So that is available for home life stress, finance, grief, and other pressures that individuals may need additional support for. The second question I was asked about was in the original, in the 2021 report to the council, there was an assessment that there'd be 2 full-time equivalents required to cover the work currently undertaken by Local Government New Zealand. And I just wanted to refer to the report before you at section 4.14, where our current assessment is that we should be able to absorb that work within the within existing resource. We're not talking about an identifiable person or half a person. It's effectively little slithers of extra support that may be required, but also there is work and time and resource put into supporting the membership of Local Government New Zealand, which may also be able to be reallocated. And if our assessment on that is wrong, that would be a matter for the Chief Executive to come back to you at another date. So those were the 2 matters I wish to just address, and we are here to answer any questions that may be helpful.
Okay, questions? Councillor Templeton.
Thanks so much. In the past, there's been a concern about elected members accessing what are currently employee benefits. So around things like counselling, that kind of stuff, professional development is done separately, those kind of things. So why the change in that advice now?
So before Local Government New Zealand had the support services in place, which I can't recall exactly when they became available, but it was within a year, 18 months ago, I believe. Before that, my understanding was that some members were provided with services upon request, but those explorations had been looked at that time around making the workplace support available more broader, but in the meantime the Local Government New Zealand offering became available.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Moore.
So, sorry, you're saying as of now, things like counselling support are now available to elected members?
I'm saying we can effectively switch that on for all elected members if the support services that you currently have access to through Local Government New Zealand became unavailable.
Okay, so you're saying it can be switched
Yes,
on then?
can be switched on.
Okay.
At very short notice, our supplier has capacity to be able to provide that support.
Okay. So it's been discussed that we could do lobbying in a different way, or we can employ someone to do that. So I'm just not clear who you mentioned would be doing that. Who can do it? Who's resourced to do it? Would it require getting someone new?
That's not something that we've taken any further at this stage. That is something that we could come back to you if you make a decision to give notice to no longer be a member.
Yeah, so we don't actually have a plan around that per se.
Not at this stage.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Donovan?
Just in terms of the extra support, because I know there've been a lot of requests, and it is a bit surprising to hear that we're only sort of looking at that now, or if that was sort of potentially an option previously. Is there a difference between some of the needs of staff within the organisation, potentially elected members, given that the roles and functions of both are quite separate? So, for instance, an elected member might need training around standing orders and things like that, whereas someone within the organisation might prefer training on something else. So have we looked at where the overlap will be within the potential to switch on that training?
Currently, the training for elected members is covered by its own council policy.
So,
Helen, can you just clarify the difference between what you meant by support by the external provider and training? So I think Councillor Donovan's might be confused about those two things.
Oh, my apologies. So the support I was talking about was workplace support, which you may otherwise hear referred to as EAP support. So previously that was the colloquial term stating for employee assistance program. So I'm talking about what's now called workplace support, which is the current name for that. So that is the support I was talking about. So my apologies if I was unclear.
in terms of professional development provision, what would be available?
So currently the professional development provision is contained within council policy. The current date of that policy is 2019. That is the provision.
There is no sort of in-house provision that's applied across all councillors. It's a sort of on an individual budget basis.
The current council policy is that it is self-directed to a certain financial limit, and that limit is up to $4,000 per year.
Thank you. Councillor Cotter.
It's just that, you know, I'm a bit concerned when you're talking about that those services available for things like counselling and wellbeing support services, that they could be activated from this organisation, but you can't put a price on that. Then that's quite significant, because if it turned out to be 20 elected members a year throughout council and community boards, that could well equate to a membership fee or 50% of a membership fee, who knows? So there will be a cost to that.
As it is for using the service, that it varies on how often it is accessed, and the different experience of the different forms of support costs different amounts. So it's very much on a user pays effectively basis, and that it's impossible for me to know, because the information from Local Government New Zealand is that's not information they can provide to me.
Okay, so the bottom line is that there would be a cost should any elected members want to receive counselling or support services.
That's correct.
If we left LGNZ. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Harrison Hunt, please. There, mate.
Kia ora, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Kia ora. Hi, Helen. I'm just wondering what the cost would be for elected members to get that support regardless of the LGNZ offerings through EAP?
So that's provided on an hourly basis, depending on how often the service is accessed. So
So the price fluctuates, does it?
I can't be more specific than that.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Councillor Templeton.
Thanks. one of the differences between elected members and employees of the organisation when it comes to various expenses is the fact that elected member costs are all published and accessible. So, for example, when I have used the EAP program through LGNZ, I accessed 6 counselling sessions due to the harassment I've been getting. Part of that is a non-disclosure thing, so the organisation, no one has to know. And that for many people will help. If a counsellor chooses to access support services through EAP and it costs the organisation, and I know my stuff was over $200 an hour, will that be listed and published? And so the general public will know that there's been a cost there, and that will put people off potentially accessing help.
The service is confidential.
But the fact that counsellors have used the service and there has been a cost to the public, will that be made public? Because that's generally what happens with any expenses that counsellors incur as elected members.
Annual report.
It's all the Goimerable and stuff.
I cannot see how it would be identifiable to a particular councillor. It would, or other elected member, it would be charged back to a budget, but it wouldn't be identifiable.
Okay, so how does that meet our obligations? If we're as elected members as opposed to employees, right? Because that's what we face a lot of the time.
We wouldn't be EAP does not identify who's used the service. It would potentially go back to an elected member code.
Yes.
So it would be the quantum of the elected members, but it wouldn't come back. Just like when it comes back to council, we don't know which staff it goes to a lump sum code of the staff who have accessed EAP. So nobody knows that they've accessed it unless they tell them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Donovan, please.
So just to be clear, we'd be switching one subscription for another, is that to get a similar service, but we don't know what the cost would be to take on.
There is an existing supply arrangement for counselling and other support services to assist staff with stresses that are affecting their ability to do their role. So effectively what it would be doing is opening that supply arrangement to be able to be accessed by elected members as well, and the cost of that will be actual usage.
Okay, so it's the user pays. And with regards back to professional development, I'm aware, having come to council and not come from a local government background, when new elected members come to council, they're not aware of what support is available in terms of professional development. So currently, I'm not aware of any kind of database or system where councillors can go to, and it has a whole range of professional development opportunities. Really, they're just sort of left in the wilderness to figure out where the gaps might be. So how would that be addressed by removing access to, for instance, Akona, which I know has been introduced recently? So it's a new provision, and it's a new opportunity for councillors who are coming in and having to get up to speed pretty quickly.
So the council policy is that training for individual members is self-directed up to the value of an annual amount. When it comes to the local government general election, there is a project that will be owned and sponsored by the chief executive and the executive team to prepare a program for inducting new members, as there was at the previous after the previous election.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just clarify that the policy of self-directed training was what the council laws wanted and passed in their policy? It wasn't something imposed on them, so it was a policy that was adopted by the council.
That is correct. It is a council policy, and any review of that policy would be by the governing body of the council.
Okay, thank you.
So I've just got two quick more ones. In terms of the Akona tools, is there a limit to how much professional development you can access? Because I'm aware community boards they don't get, a lot of our community board reps don't get paid very much, and they're juggling different jobs, so they would have access to potentially unlimited amounts of professional development, where otherwise they're capped at quite a low level. So do you know if because one of the key differences would be if it's self-directed, you're also limited by what you can spend, whereas through a CONA, effectively, you're only limited by what's available.
So for the community boards, there is an allocation per board, and historically that allocation has been underspent.
And final question is, the other thing that community board members have commented on, and councillors, is around the opportunities to network, which I think is quite a sort of under recognised aspect of LGNZ, is that, you know, young elected members and other groups that might sort of be new to local government, they might not feel the support through the organisation. What opportunities would they have to network in a sort of more formalised and structured way outside of LGNZ through this council?
I don't think that's a question I can answer.
Okay, and Councillor Peters, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Helen, for sharing that information about the workplace support. It's a question I actually asked at the Health and Safety and Wellbeing Committee recently in an informal setting as to, is there workplace support for elected members? Because I know some elected members that have really needed some support recently. So good to hear that that's potentially opening up should we vote today. But it's always surprised me too, the lack of access to training. You know, I started on a community board 4.5 years ago, and the training in governance or standing orders has been invisible. And to now see that, now that we've finally got access to a CONA through LGNZ opening it up to everyone, we may potentially today vote to lose it. I'm hoping there's some sort of plan going forward to enhance the training available to elected members.
All I can repeat is what I've already said about what the current council policy is about training.
Right. Is there a possibility to review that policy?
It's currently earmarked to come to council on the 3rd of July.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, how am I going to work this, Mary? Yeah.
So we have a motion that's been moved and seconded there, and we also have a foreshadowed motion, which, so if the first motion fails, we will move on to the foreshadowed one. So that foreshadowed one, if we can just get it up on screen.
So the foreshadowed one is the other officer
More or less.
recommendation that we stay.
No,
It's Andre's one.
Andre's got some additional ones.
Oh, I haven't seen Andre's one.
Yeah, any minute now.
Where is
They've been emailed to everyone
Yeah.
15 minutes ago, and Katie's got this put up.
So
Can
that's,
they see that?
yeah, so that's the foreshadowed one. So if you've had time to read it, we'll then move on
I
to...
don't understand it. Can I? Oh, hang on. There, it's different than what I've got.
So he's added in
Oh, I see.
those 3, 4, 5,
6 and 7.
7,
What I've sent you is
3 to 6. So can you just hold up those and read?
Happy to second if I need to.
Or whatever. Yeah.
There you go,
So those are the new ones.
are the new bits.
Yeah, and they'd likely be, if we get to that, likely would put them each separately.
Okay.
If we get
And so Harrison Hunt seconded that foreshadowed motion.
Great,
Tyler,
Thank you.
Harrison Hunt. Yep. So if we go back to the original motion that was put on by McDonald and McClellan, seconded. Yep. So the good. One debate.
just, okay.
If it pleases the mover of that foreshadowed, would we be able to add an additional, which is collating all of this resolution here from Councillor McDonald's and actually using that to provide a report in line with the annual plan 2025?
I just recommend that we deal with the motion
First,
currently on the table
yeah,
first.
and then we can settle the foreshadowed one. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
But
So-
in short, yes, that would please me very much.
So we'll go into debate. Shall we? Who would like? Everything.
We're debating them both.
The whole shooting match. Councillor Templeton.
Well, I've got to say, I'm been really impressed with the changes I've seen in local government New Zealand over the last year and a half especially. They are way more engaged with councils, way more advocacy and media attention, focusing on the issues, and a lot of research, all which benefit all councils. Otatahi Christchurch is slowly but surely, and actually it's speeding up, losing any relevance and influence on the national stage. We need a strong voice, and as those of us who've been members of the union and unions in the past will know, there's strength in numbers, especially with the size and heft of Auckland at the other end of the country taking up all the attention. Do we really believe that we can foot it alone when the government have been clear they don't want to work with individual councils? LGNZ is not just about lobbying either. We are currently the largest council in LGNZ, and taking a leadership role is an opportunity we should take with both hands. We often hear from the public concerns about the decision-making ability and governance skills of elected members. Professional development opportunities abound through our membership with Local Government New Zealand. Our CONA offers unlimited ability to access relevant development opportunities. Our PD budgets are small, they are tight, and they don't give us the opportunity to do as much as we would like, and community boards have limited opportunity apart from the odd community boards conference to use that. I've already taken advantage of some of the Arcona workshops and courses so far, and I'd encourage others to give it a go. And even if you don't feel the need, please don't cut it out for your colleagues. Elected member networks are also important, and support for underrepresented groups, access to advice from experts on issues impacting elected members, access to free counselling services, and lastly, the conference, if nothing else. The over 1,000 people to Christchurch next year with the combined Local Government New Zealand and Community Boards Conference, and the economic benefit that that brings to the city. We often pay to bid for these kind of things, and we won't have to with the local government conferences, and they will come every second year if we decide to stay a member. Staying a member of LGNZ is an investment in our leadership and advocacy, and elected members' professional development, and in their local economy. And I'd urge councillors to vote against the motion to decline the membership, and for those wavering, give it another year or abstain. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Henstock, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm really pleased that we held this over to receive the community board feedback, and thank you to my fellow community board member Simon Britton. That was the right thing for us to do. That said, we only received a 30% response rate, which was really hardly overwhelming. It was valuable for me last night to attend the online community board meeting, which discussed this issue, and I heard firsthand from some community board members who had accessed LGNZ resources for professional development, and particularly for workplace support. So I'm really pleased to see the reference in there to the professional training and the workplace support. And I'm also encouraged by Helen White's reference to the wellbeing support being available. I think that's a really great step forward. In respect to the community board feedback that was received, the stats, to my mind, really don't justify the level of spending. We've got 8%, we've only 3 people who received advice. We've got 3 that attended a conference, and only 4 attended an online hui or a webinar. So we're hearing in the chamber today about how valuable it is, but the reality is that the uptake is not there, and the feedback is just telling us a different story to what we're hearing today. And noticeably also that the networking events and the conferences were also not universally valued by the respondents to the seminar, and I think that's significant. So to my mind, it's not justifying the spend. I do acknowledge there's benefits of membership to smaller councils, but we're a metropolitan area, and I just don't see it adding value to us in that same way, and certainly not advocating for us in Wellington. And I think the infrastructure allocation for Canterbury is relevant to that. And in that regard, I want to quote a Facebook post from some of my colleagues last night about South Island being increasingly irrelevant in the national conversation and to the new government, and we need a plan and a strong voice advocating for that. So why is that? Well, that's because LGNZ isn't doing it for us. So thank you to my council colleagues because that originated from those two posts, and we really have to do better if we want to be taken seriously in Wellington. And I think that we can advocate more effectively and more specifically on the matters that are important to that. So again, I'm pleased to see the allocation of the 30,000 for the parliamentary engagement and strategy. I don't think it's enough, but I really do think that's a step in the right direction, and that will be money well spent for us. So I'm inclined to agree with this today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McClelland.
Thank you. Look, I don't believe that there's no value I don't believe that there's no value obtained from LGNZ. I do think there's real and proper value. I just don't think it's $170,000 worth. I think there's value in training, there's value in elected member connection, and there's obviously value in engaging with central government, and we saw that go awfully wrong over the Three Waters issue. I just don't think that we're doing it to particularly good effect or at a reasonable cost. When we debated this issue the last council pointed to a whole bunch of benefits from LGNZ. There were actually optional extras at the time. It was a real debate on a false premise in my view. The reality is, I think that the fellowship and the training in local government doesn't need to come with such an expensive executive overhead. We don't need to invest into a multi-million-dollar organisation to still have opportunities to connect and to have training. I also reject the idea that this is a union. It is not a union. It is a professional services body, like chartered accountants or the Automobile Association. Unions stand up for workers who don't have any other choices and very little power in their employment situations. They fight for basic health and safety and workers' rights. This is entirely different. I think that where we've arrived is a really good place. It's allowed members to see the counterfactual and see what services would be provided in a post-LGNZ environment. You can see that there's 60,000 going to the community boards. One of the big issues when we last discussed this was the lack of support that community board members felt that they were receiving. There's 30,000 for us as well for professional training and workplace support, which is important. There's money set aside to engage with Parliament, both government and opposition, and obviously there's a saving that we can use to spend on some of our amendments when we sign off the LTP. So it's really good, but again, I really want to finish on this point, which is it's not just the cost, but it's how effective we're being. And I don't believe, as Victoria raised, we are actually engaging. In fact, I know we're not engaging well with central government because I certainly know that was the case last term when Labor were in government.
Thank you. Councillor Peters.
Thank you. I was totally for the idea of leaving this off the agenda paper for last time round. We needed to go back to community boards and hear from them because this does have huge impact on the community boards. I also attended the combined community boards meeting last night, and I was extremely underwhelmed by the response from the community board survey. To me, that kind of painted a picture, and you would have heard me in questioning talking about elected members who need to access workplace support, and it's great to hear that the organisation's looking to open up to offer that to elected members as well, because it surprises me that we never had that prior to this. Also, I've been trying to get access to governance training since the day I got elected to community board. The fact that we didn't have a CONA I think was tragic, and it's a shame to see that it's only just been opened up to all LGNZ members as we come to this decision today, because a CONA I think is a resource that should be freely available to all elected members, and I think the fact that it's caused the fees for LGNZ to blow out to the extent that they have is unfortunate for LGNZ. It would have been better for them to try and absorb some of that for this round so that they could, give people the value of a Kona and access to it freely without having to cause this debate today. So I think the challenge for us as a council going forward post today's decision, whichever way it goes, will be to pull together and to make sure that we're all well supported, supporting each other in our roles, and supporting those community boards in their roles, and supporting everyone with their workplace support needs as well. Because it's a tough job being here in the seats. It's not as easy as people think it might be. You've got a lot of pressure on you from all angles, and we need to look after each other and look out for each other and get the best job that we can get done for our city. So I think the challenge, particularly for the organisation, is going to be going forward and making sure that everyone's getting what they need. So let's see where this lands.
Thank you. Councillor Cotter.
Look, I think that change in leadership in local government New Zealand, as Councillor Templeton alluded to, has been extremely positive. However, Mayor Broughton has not been in that role for very long. And I actually really like a couple of the clauses that Councillor Moore has put in here to signal to LGNZ what we think we should ask him to focus on. If we were to leave today, I think that's a very, very poor signal to our neighbouring council. We're not even giving this man a chance. I think he spoke very well and clearly today, and he's obviously passionate about local government New Zealand and working for us. And referring to Councillor Henstock's comments about our South Island and we don't think we're getting our fair share of the infrastructure funding from government. This is exactly why we need a strong advocate in local government New Zealand, which I think they can be for us. I really do, and I think we've got to give him the chance. And if we look at, we're probably a third the way through our membership for this year, which started in March. So that's some funding that we won't get back of the 163. We're talking about filling a gap for advocacy from our existing budgets, which I don't think we've got room for personally, so that will be another cost. And we're looking at filling the gap for any counselling and wellbeing tools that we might want to access. That will be another cost. So in actual fact, in reality, we wouldn't be saving very much money at all this year. So if anything, I'd be happy to relook at this next year, but I will be voting to stay in at the moment. I think we owe it to Sam Broughton to give him a chance to see how he goes. The community boards. So we had our meeting the other night, and the opportunity, out of 9 community board members, the opportunity to attend the conference, only 2 are allowed to go. And normally it's the chair who goes, which I think is appropriate, and 1 other. Now, the community boards I don't think have been engaged, actively enough. And so that's something else we could feed back to LGNZ. And they're the ones who also need this stuff. So really, I think that we would be impacting Mayor Broughton's opportunity to have his day if we leave today. Not only with withdrawing our funds, which are considerable, but it would also cause reputational damage for the second biggest city in New Zealand not to be supporting local government New Zealand. I think that we would regret this decision if we leave today. So I'm urging councillors to oppose the motion and support the foreshadowed motion of Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Councillor Barber, and then Harry.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We've just spent weeks going through the LTP, examining everything we spend money on, trying to tease out value for money. And to me, this is a good time to look at our LGNZ commitment. I personally don't think it's value for money. I think if people are looking for training, then my experience is a good one. I came in elected to community board and was elected chair in my first term. I didn't get any training from LGNZ. I got absolutely fantastic training from our staff who were with me every step of the way, guided me through the whole process with standing orders, etc. So the training is there if you ask for it. We've got the ability in this organisation to provide most of the training that people need. In terms of one member mentioned that you know, Christchurch is losing its relevance on the national stage. Well, I would dispute that, you know. I think there are so many positive things happening in our city, and it really surprises me that someone would have that attitude when young people are moving here in their droves, our university's growing, we've got amazing things happening across the district. The aerospace industry is projected to be worth out at Tāwhaki at Kaitoriti Spit some $2.4 billion over the next 10 years. So I think we're not losing our relevance on the national stage, and if we can take control of our own destiny without putting it in the hands of others, I think we'll do better. I think this is an expensive overhead, and I agree with Councillor McClellan on that point. So, yeah, I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Harrison-Hunt, please.
Tēnā rā tātou katoa. Firstly, I'd like to address a few things in this. And the first one are the LGNZ conferences. And I'd like to start by saying that as a new elected member, LGNZ has been fundamental in my progression as a councillor newly elected. Not only did the conference provide fundamental insights from those seasoned members, but it gave me a new lease and ideas that I can travel towards innovative and cost-saving ideas. Also utilising things that were of low-cost projects. Now, I'll tell you what I received from the conferences themselves. I learned directly from other new and old elected members who had very similar issues as us, but also found ways to navigate them, and honing in on my ideas, such as the Citizens Assembly idea, the youth engagement ideas, my portfolios, and using standing orders to make change where needed, and also gave me advice on dealing with different communities and so much more. And you'll be able to see that reflected in the Mayor's recommendations and my LTP amendments, of which started from the LGNZ advice that I've received from my colleagues from all around the country. Also, as the only Māori elected member in this council right now, and one of a handful of all elected members in Christchurch, I get that support from them. I'm also one of 4 young elected members in the council, and that's also support that I get, being able to understand the issues that they have and how they get to navigate this space too. Second, I'd like to talk about the economic benefits of it. As Mayor Sam described, the economic benefits of the conferences in LGNZ, that which he said would be biannually, equate to around $1.2 million, which is around 7-fold of our investment. And I'd really like to see what the hoteliers and the hospitality providers would like to think about taking $1.2 million from their pockets biannually. Lastly, there's the amendment itself and the national advocacy work that we need to talk on. I'd like to challenge this council in questioning the advocacy piece of the amendment provided. I'm not confident that this individualistic approach would benefit outside of the PC14 decision, which was bespoke but wide-ranging. Central government has quite often on both sides put their 2 hands on their ears when our city's representatives are creating noise. I feel like if we do this, then they will continue to do that, but only do that to us instead of 76 other councils. Talking on the amendment itself, I believe it would be beneficial to wait until the annual plan in 25-26, where it would be seen to be more pragmatic, where we review all memberships. I'd be happy to review the provided resolution, the one that's standing right now, once we give LGNZ a chance to address our colleagues' issues, and I'm pessimistic and concerned about the notion that we'd be able to provide the support available by injecting this budget into internal pots. If what is currently being offered right now is perceived to be good enough, I wouldn't be confident in knowing that I'll be supported. Lastly, I implore my colleagues to not take the financial risk in a what-if maybe amendment. Wait for a year to be able to provide a report of this, outlining it in line with the annual plan, and continue to utilise the LGNZ conferences or resources. As Mayor Moko from the far north so rightly put it, it's like a gym membership, you get out what you put in. So therefore, I want you to support the foreshadowed amendment with the addition of using this current resolution to be in line with the annual plan in 25-26, which seems to be more pragmatic and financially sustainable.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Yeah, look, if it's possible for the council to fund its own more effective lobbying, training, professional development, I'm open to all of that, but there's no evidence of that being the case. Nothing's been costed. There's no facts proving that there's another way. We've been told clearly there's no plan for improving training options. We'd have to change policy. We're so close to having all of these training options available to us, potentially about to vote to remove the bill, which at least let us go absolute ham on that training for a year before leaving. That would seem like good value. As for we should be advocating ourselves, there's nothing stopping us from doing that now. It's not one or the other. You can do both. I mean, we had Brum Street cut, Cook Street Ferry cut, surf funding cut, and we've been as good as silent. LGNZ's not to blame for that. It's not LGNZ's job to speak up about Brum Street. It's our job. And ultimately we failed to speak up on that. If there was a great plan to start lobbying better tomorrow, then great. But there is no plan. We haven't seen one. So central government's got local government by the balls. Central government collects around 95% of the taxes paid. We're responsible for around 25% of the infrastructure. And we even tax 15% on a rates bill. We have to beg for funding for transport projects. The funding mechanisms do need to change. All councils will tell you the same thing. If councils start disbanding from one another and lobbying for things that contradict one another, nothing will ever change. Ministers can't be in 70, 80 places at once. Right now they're thinking, you lot go agree amongst yourselves, then come back to us with a solution, and then we can start working towards it. Three Waters should be a good learning from that. So my amendments do offer a pragmatic compromise. They strike at the core reason of why we're considering this in the first place. One's investigating alternative lobby options. If there's better options, then let's do them. If they prove to be better, we've got to look at leaving later if we know we've got better options. If we don't believe we're getting good value, then let's send that signal, actually meet with LGNZ to try and get that better value. If we haven't asked for it, well, we're not going to get it. We haven't had that meeting as a council. I'm not sure why. We should be doing that before making a decision like this. There's a lot of real hefty decisions coming up, and we have to be really, really careful. That's all councils. And number 5, we've got $657,000 a year in various memberships in addition to LGNZ. Plus sister city relationships around $130,000 a year. So all up, you're looking $800,000 a year with other memberships. We should be looking at all, the value of all, not just looking at 140 grand there and saying, okay, well, this is the reason for all of these issues. We should be looking at the value of all, because it's going to be hard to justify not having a relationship with other councils in our own country, but then saying, no, we are happy to spend money on those relationships with cities on the other side of the world. To justify one but not the other may be quite tricky. So we should be reviewing all at once, doing our due diligence. And the one about travel bookings is the fact that I won't be able to explain in detail, but believe me, there's method in the madness. So we should be doing the work before making a decision to leave. If all the numbers stack up, there's a better deal elsewhere, I'll absolutely be quite happy to consider leaving next year. Making a knee-jerk decision doesn't seem responsible. But if you're going to vote to take opportunities away from your colleagues, there should be some meaningful dialogue amongst us before that happens. Just responding to Councillor Peters' comments about supporting each other, voting to take away opportunities from other members just simply isn't supporting each other. The Young Elected Member Network, it can't be replaced. There's nothing we can introduce at council that replaces that. There's not. And for me, and I believe for Tyler as well, it's been one of the highlights of actually the term so far. Learnings from that have been so invaluable, which would have been a surprise to me, I've got to say. So I urge council to support these amendments. They capture the spirit of why we're here today, and I believe that if we work together, we can actually end up with a better outcome, and we'll review these things properly over the next year for the annual plan.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald?
We'll wrap it up.
Imagine you're an MP or someone who works in central government and you're developing policy that affects local government. When you want to engage with the local government sector, who would you contact first? Well, obviously the entity that represents councils across the country. Therefore, it doesn't make sense for Christchurch not to continue to be a member of LGNZ. Regarding benefits to community boards, which I brought up in a question to Sam, most board members don't know the value they can personally have from LGNZ, which has already been mentioned. And as Pauline said, it's partly because we don't set aside enough funding to support board members to attend events and conferences. They're very valuable. And just in Zone 5, that has, which is the top of the South Island and we're part of, that has 22 community boards. We have 6 of those community boards, which is a very big proportion of that. So I think we should take that into consideration. Sam highlighted today the cost benefit to our council of remaining part of LGNZ. Now, by choosing not to spend $160,000 today, as others have mentioned, we will deprive the hospitality industry of $1.2 million. That's $600,000 every year, as those conferences would be every 2 years. Is that financially prudent? There'd be other financial benefits as well, as Sam mentioned earlier. The other thing with the conferences is if we don't have those, it means other local elected members across the country would not visit our beautiful city, and therefore they'd have less ability to learn lessons that Christchurch has had over the years, particularly in relation to the earthquakes and mosque events. And I think that's a disservice to local government actually throughout New Zealand. Also, as been mentioned, the chair is the mayor of our neighbouring Selwyn District Council, and that council, it was in the paper yesterday, I think, it's growing at such a fast pace. It's the fastest growing district in the country, increasing 29% over 5 years to nearly 80,000 people last year. It's nearly as big as Timaru and Ashburton, and in 10 years it'll be as big in Dunedin. That's our neighbour. I think that we should, think about what we're saying to our neighbours if we decide to pull away from LGNZ. I recognise we're really a large council. We have a voice in our own right, but we are part of a layer of government in this country that's very important. And I'm actually really concerned with the myopic view I've heard around the table today about what's in it for us. Have we thought about what benefit we can have to our city through conferences and other financial means, and other benefits we may later receive that we aren't even aware of yet? And what benefits could us being involved have to South Island and New Zealand in general when it's, in relation to local government? That's what we should be thinking about. Isn't it best to work together with other councils? Or are we just trying to send them all a big F you? We don't care about working with other councils. If that's the case, I'm very disappointed with councillors who decide to vote to leave LGNZ today.
Okay, Councillor Skendrick, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just keeping in mind that our first responsibility is to our ratepayers of Christchurch, and to say that 2 reasons why we should stay here is because of we owe it to Sam Broughton, and a conference every 2 years is absolutely ridiculous. I'm all for personal development, and I think it's an absolute wonderful thing. I myself didn't get any education at school. That's my stupidity, but I spent 5 years getting it myself, paying it for myself years later. And I tell you what, you are very careful and focused on when you are paying for education yourself. So I think there'd be a lot of ratepayers out there questioning why they're paying for our personal development, because when we chose to stand for council, when we chose to stand for community boards, we chose from an educated position, and that is what we hope to bring here today and ongoing. It is absolutely essential. We ask ourselves, why don't more people come to council? Why don't more people engage with us? We've got information here from the community boards in black and white, and yet around this table we choose to misinterpret it. It's really simple. 10 community board members came to us, 4 of them have said yes. These community board members are adults. I've been on the community board prior to coming to council. We run businesses. We are educated generally. So I think it's really important to listen to what they've said. To say that it's highly important, we haven't advocated enough for our community board members, that's nonsense. It's personal choice to take up personal development. If it hasn't been taken up, that's fine. That's a choice. We have absolutely outstanding staff around this organisation who I have relied on for the last close to 11, 12 years and prior to that, and it's been fantastic. Really good understanding on how it works. I also like the fact that counselling has been brought in-house, so we are one with our staff. And do think that sometimes when our staff come in front of us, they probably need counselling afterwards because of the way they are treated. I'm quite serious. So for me, I think that I would like to have a look at doing it ourselves. To say that we are losing relevance in the national context. My colleagues around here, I have 3 political parties represented at this table. So maybe you're the problem, we're the problem, not the city. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald. Oh, sorry, Councillor. You haven't spoken, have you? Councillor Donovan.
I find it interesting that we discussed what LGNZ means, and I heard a comment that it doesn't represent this idea of what being part of a union is. So I googled that just to clarify my understanding of what a union is, and it says definition of a union is the act of joining together or the fact of being joined together, especially in a political context. So actually, LGNZ, which is the peak body representing New Zealand's 78 local councils, providing a unified voice for the sector and pathway for continuous improvement for councils, would, in my view, fit the definition of a union. So I am a little surprised that one of the councillors that is strongly advocating to leave a union speaks on behalf of other unions. So, I look forward to some clarification on it at some point. We also hear a lot of commentary about going it alone. We see that on the international context. Brexit, I mean, what a massive success that's been. Go it alone. We can do it alone. It's going to be much better. The benefits will be huge. Perhaps the councillors that are advocating for this should have gotten a bus, because then we would get some clearer messaging about what the benefits are, because I can't actually see them in this report. We've heard about the benefits of potentially switching to user pays. Where's the budget? Where are the specifics around the benefits? I don't see any numbers attached to the budget for counselling services. Well, we heard today we don't know what the budget is for that. We need to have every opportunity to have a say on the national stage, and people are saying, well, Councillor Moore's made the point that it's not an either-or scenario. We can and should be advocating for our city and our ratepayers through this city council, and I have to say, either we haven't been doing it effectively or we're not being heard, but either way, we should be taking every opportunity to be speaking up, because the reality is we are not seeing money coming through to our council. Unlike the current government, we've seen that the South Island has significant representation on LGNZ. The current president is a member, is the president of LGNZ from a neighbouring council. So we have representation for the South Island, specifically understanding our local issues through LGNZ. We have a member of our community boards is on the executive committee, and we know that our mayor is also providing strong representation through the executive committee. So what we should be focusing on is what's good for the South Island, which is collaboration and working together. So I'll be voting for Councillor Moore's amendment today, and I would urge the rest of the councillors to do so.
Thank you. And Councillor McDonald, please.
Cool, just very briefly, I think everything's been covered, really. There is a first to everything, and I didn't think I'd hear Brexit mentioned in here, but stranger things have happened. The other thing I never thought I'd hear in here, certainly from you, Celeste, was that Phil was strongly representing Christchurch and Wellington, which I took from your comments as well, so that was fantastic. I think if you look at the structure we've actually got structured here, this is far more equitable for the community boards and for the council. I certainly know since the election that we've made the effort to engage with the government, and they've always been very clear that the door is very open. I think the commentary around projects being removed and money drying up, if you look at it, that's happening right around the world. It's certainly happening in New Zealand as they're trying to rein back in a significant amount of spending. And look, I think what we can do is by knocking on their doors directly and having those conversations, we can get things over the line like the Pages Road Bridge. I personally am very confident we will get Pages Road Bridge over the line by being far more direct with the government than going through a lobby group, LGNZ in Wellington. So look, I think the structure in this is very good. I would almost put money on it that we will get Pages Road over the bridge. Pages Road Bridge, hopefully you don't get Pages Road over the bridge. That might be the risk, actually. We will get the bridge sorted by doing this direct approach, and I think the mayor's been very resolute in dealing with that. The government seemed relatively receptive as well. So I think the more we can do on that, that would be fantastic. So I would urge people to take this next step for us. I think it's a really good way to put Christchurch on the map and say, we can do it ourselves. We are good at what we do, and we're effective in the way we communicate with Wellington. That's what they've been asking for, and this is what that delivers. So I would hope people support the motion that Jake and I have put up today. I think it strikes a good balance, and we can move forward.
Okay, right. With that, and I will use the word division because I'm sure it's going to get asked. I'll put that. Thank you, Katie.
So
Why don't we just let the division go? No, it's like, just do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So this is the full motion as put forward moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor McClellan, which is to decline to renew your membership in LGNZ, and then with the additional recommendations 3 A through D.
There's no sense putting them red.
That's his motion.
No, do the whole lot together.
Well, I don't want to vote against receiving information.
No, that's not what Katie said. Katie said to what the motion that Sam put, so it's 2, 3.
3 A through D.
Yeah. Well, if 2 failed, I'd look to be incorporating some of that into my foreshadowed anyway, is the other point. So it may as well all be voted on.
Okay.
Okay, let's just put the motion.
Whatever you want.
Has it been emailed around?
Okay.
Katie's
Katie's going to run this.
Katie's on it.
Are we ready? Everyone?
Yeah, she's doing it.
Yes,
Just
we are going to vote on a division. So recommendations 1 through 4, those were the existing ones, so we can discount those in this division. So you'll be primarily voting on recommendations 2, which is to decline to renew your membership, and recommendation 3, which are the additions made by Councillor McDonald and Councillor McClellan. Yes. Cool.
Yep.
Fantastic. Deputy Mayor Cotter. No. Councillor Barber.
Yes.
Councillor Cooker.
No.
Councillor Donovan. No. Councillor Fields.
No.
Councillor Goff.
Yes.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
No.
Councillor Hinstock.
Yes.
The Mayor.
Yes.
Councillor Johansson.
No.
Councillor Kewen.
Yes.
Councillor McDonald.
yes.
Councillor McClellan.
Yes.
Councillor Moore.
No.
Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Scandrett.
Yes.
Councillor Templeton.
No.
That's 9-4
All good?
against.
Righto, that is carried. Thank you very much. Right, we'll move on to number 9. We do, don't we? Starting on 9? Yep.
Sorry, do we, just before we move on, do we need to revoke the attendance at the LGNZ conference and withdraw our posting agreement? Or?
Can I just check process-wise? Because I'm partway through one of the Arcona courses that I'd quite like to finish. When are we sending that in writing so that I know when I can...
We'll come back with some advice.
Yeah.
So the 6 councillors still going to LGZ conference, including Councillor McDonald and Goff, who currently got their names to go?
We'll
Still
liaise
going?
with LGNZ and come back.
Because I think those
Names down to
tickets
go.
have already been booked.
Okay, yep, so we'll come back with some advice around that.
No, we're still paid.
Yep, we'll come back, cover them.
Right. Sorry to keep you waiting.